This is Unit 3, Day 3, and today we are factoring trinomials. Alright, so the standard form of a quadratic, which is also known as a trinomial, is ax squared plus bx plus c. It says, without using your calculator, rewrite each of the products in simplest form. So, you are just going to FOIL or use the box method. Okay, so it's FOIL, first, outer, inner, last, or the box method. I'll do the first one in FOIL, and then I'll switch to box on part B and so forth, so you guys can see both methods. All right, my first terms, when I multiply those, I'm going to get 15x squared. My outers will be the 3x and the plus 7, so I'm going to get plus 21x. And my inners would be a 2 times a 5x would be plus 10x. And my last terms are going to be the 2 times the 7, which is 14. Okay, the outers and the inners always combine like terms. Okay, so this was my first, my outer, my inner, my last in FOIL. So when I clean that up, I'm going to get 15x squared plus 31x plus 14. Okay, so that's the FOIL method. Box method, it's a binomial times a binomial, so it's a 2 by 2. Okay, so the first binomial is 2x minus 3. The second binomial is 2x plus 5. Now you're going to line up each box using multiplication. So this box right here is 2x times 2x. You're going to get 4x squared. The upper right box is lining up this 2x from over here, and the negative 3x, you get minus 6x. Lower left corner is the 5 times the 2x from up top. You're going to get 10x. And then my last box over here is the 5 times the negative 3, which is negative 15. Okay. These diagonal boxes are your outers and your inners, kind of like in FOIL, so you're going to combine like terms. So that goes to 4x squared, and then 10x take away 6x would be plus 4x, and then you carry the minus 15. Okay, so whatever method works for you, you can use. I'm going to use the FOIL method. So my first terms, I'm going to do 5x times x. I get 5x squared. My outers are 5x times negative 2. I get negative 10x. My inners are negative 4 times x. I get negative 4x. And my last, negative 4 times negative 2, I'm going to get positive 8. Okay, again, I'm combining these two in the middle. I'm going to get 5x squared minus 14x plus 8. Okay, last one. First terms, 4x times 3x is going to be 12x squared. My outers, negative 8 times 4x would be negative 32x. Inners, 3 times 3x would be plus 9x. And my last 3 times negative 8 is going to be negative 24. Combine like terms. So that results in a 12x squared. And then that would be minus 23x minus 24. Moving on to example 14. It is important that you know the fundamental rules governing the multiplication and addition of signed numbers. These rules will be key in factoring correctly and quickly. In each case where a trinomial can be factored, it will be done using the guess and check method where we intelligently guess binomial pairs and then check by seeing if the linear terms of the multiplication combine to form the linear term of that trinomial. Okay, so consider the trinomial. Below are 4 guesses of how this trinomial factors. Part A. 2 of these guesses are unintelligent, meaning they should not be checked. Cross them out and explain below why they are unreasonable. All right, so when I look at these, the first 2 to me that are very unreasonable is, you know that the first terms, if you think of like FOIL, you know that the first terms have to multiply to a 6x squared. So if I look at these first terms, x times x gives me an x squared. Okay, so that automatically doesn't match the 6x, so that's an unintelligent choice. Okay, and then my next one that you could probably get rid of is going to be the last one, because in FOIL, it has to multiply the last to negative 6. And right here, if you look at this last choice here, a negative 2 times a negative 3 would result in a plus 6, and it's supposed to be minus 6. So I can automatically get rid of 2 choices, okay? So if I explain my work down here, the x minus 3 times the x plus 2, the f in FOIL gives you x squared. Okay, and you're looking for 6x squared. And then the binomial 3x minus 2 times 2x minus 3, if you're doing the last, okay, the L in FOIL, you're going to be getting a plus 6, and again, you're looking for a minus 6. All right, of the two remaining that remain, check both above and determine which is the correct factorization of the trinomial. All right, well, so then I just kind of factor them. So when I FOIL this one, I'm going to get 6x squared, my outers, minus 9x, my inners, plus 4x, and my last minus 6. So those match, but now you have to make sure these middles combine. So I end up with 6x squared minus 5x minus 6. So looking here, it says negative 5x, and it's supposed to be a negative 35x. So you know that this choice is out as well. So by process of elimination, we think it's the third binomial. But let's make sure. So foiling, 6x times x, you get 6x squared. Outers, negative 36x. Inners, plus 1x. And my last, minus 6. These are okay, but again, you got to make sure your outers and inners combine to what we need them to. So carry down the 6x squared. Negative 36 plus 1 would be negative 35x minus 6. That's what we were hoping for. So the correct binomial, product of binomials, is going to be 6x plus 1 times x minus 6. Example 15. The easiest of all trinomial factoring occurs when the leading coefficient is a 1. Using a guess and check technique, factor each of the following trinomials. Remember, the factors have to multiply to the last term and add to the middle term. Guys, this is huge. You have to memorize this. They're going to multiply to the last term, but add to the middle term. So it's got to multiply to this, but add, oops, it's supposed to be an A, not a D, and add to that. Okay? All right, so there were little things that your algebra teachers might have taught you, like same sign, like both, I forget, big diff, and both, I forgot how they used to say it, but it was like big diff and both same, or same both, something like that. All right, but you just have to be good with integers, and if you're not, then use your calculator to make sure you do it. All right, so ready? 2 sets of parentheses here. And then I have to ask myself, what two numbers multiply? It's always x's here, as long as the leading coefficients are 1 over here. All right, so what two numbers multiply to give you 35? So I know it's going to be 7 times 5, give me 35. And then I need them to add to a 2. So in order for them to add to a 2, it's going to be plus 7 minus 5. Because 7 take away 5 would be positive 2. But a 7 times a negative 5 would be negative 35. All right, moving on to the next one. I know that they're x's. And again, they have to multiply to 24, but add to 11. So two numbers that multiply to 24 are 8 and 3. But because they have to add to 11, it's positive 8, positive 3. Part C, two numbers that multiply to 22. So that's going to be 11 times 2. And then I need a negative 13, so it's going to be negative 11 minus 2. Because a negative 11 minus 2 would be negative 13. All right, next one here, last one, part D. So two numbers that multiply to 50, be careful with this, but then add to 5. So 5 times 10 is 50, and I need it to be a negative 5, so it's going to be positive 10 plus 5, because negative 10 plus 5 would be negative 5, which is what they have to add to, but then a negative 10 times a positive 5 would be my negative 50, which they have to multiply to. Example 16. A step up from the last exercise occurs when the leading coefficient isn't bad, but is still a prime number. This is very often the case and makes at least part of the guessing much easier. Using a guess and check technique, factor each of the following trinomials that the prime leading coefficients. All right, now, back in the day, again, they're just talking about them being prime. So the only two numbers that multiply to give you 3 are 1 and 3. So when you're multiplying, so I'm going to put my answer over here because I want to show you guys a different technique. you know it's going to be a 3x times a 1x, because 3 times 1 is the only thing that's going to give you 3, okay? And then you would still have to just play with numbers. What two numbers multiply to 40? But then you got to be careful. And so you're going to sit here and you're going to guess and check forever. Well, guys, I hate that. Not all teachers agree with me, but I have a method called slip and slide. Okay? It works. It'll never fail you. You just have to be good at it, and you have to memorize it, and then you don't have to sit here and guess and check forever. All right, so what you do, you slide out the 3. So you slip out the 3. So I slip out the 3, and then I just copy down x squared, and I copy down plus 19x. But the very last term has to be my a times my c. Okay, that's a, that's c in standard form. So I multiply those together, and 3 times negative 40 is going to be negative 120. Now this becomes an easier trinomial to factor, just like we factored in example 15. So you're going to go 2 sets of parentheses, and then you're asking yourself what multiplies to negative 120 but adds to 19. Okay, so you might have to sit there and for a while and think of the factors of 120, but all of this, hopefully, eventually you will hit that 24 times 5. Okay, 24 times 5 is 120. So I have 24 times 5 is 120. Now, in order for it to multiply and be negative, one of those have to be negative, but then don't forget, I want it to add to a positive 19. So if I go plus 24 minus 5, 24 minus 5 is positive 19. But 24 times negative 5 would be negative 20. Okay, so I factored it old school. So remember, back in the beginning, we slipped out the 3. Now we're going to slide the 3 back in front. So that's why we get the name slip and slide. So each binomial, you have to throw the 3 in front of both of them. And then you copy over and bring down the 2 binomials that you just factored. So I carry down the x plus 24. And I carry down the x minus 5. The last step, which is why a lot of the teachers hate this method, is you have to divide and reduce the binomials. But what you divide them by kind of does, well, it doesn't get written down, so you just kind of forget about it. So I know 3 and 24 can be reduced by 3. I don't write it anywhere, I just do it. So if I divide this by 3, I get x. I divide that 24 by 3, I get 8. So I just write x plus 8. Over here, nothing reduces 3 and 5, so you just carry it. So this is my answer. So now if you go back up top, we knew that it was going to be a 3x and an x. It's 3x minus 5 and x plus 8. And don't forget, you can always check these by foiling or doing the box method to make sure it's the right. Okay, so next one again. I slip out the 2. I'm left with x squared minus 15x, and then 18 times 2 is positive 36. I'm going to factor this old school. Okay, when I factor it old school, I know that, yes, 9 and 4 give me 36, but it's not going to combine to give me a 15. So you have to look for 2 more factors, and hopefully you hit 12 and 3. 12 times 3 is 36, but if I add 12 and 3, I'm going to get negative 15. So I need them both to be negative, which makes sense because when I multiply them, a negative times a negative would result in a positive. All right, now you slip the 2 back in the fronts. So I write 2x minus 12, 2x minus 3. Again, the hard part. Reduce your binomials, but do not write it down what you reduced it by. So in this case, I can reduce them both by 2. So if I divide that by 2, I'm left with x minus 6. Over here, 2 and 3 are both prime. Nothing reduces. I get 2x minus 3. So this is my answer. And I'm left with x minus 6 times 2x minus 3. And again, this is called the slip and slide method. All right, moving on here, example 17. Finally, the hardest trinomials is when they're not prime, okay? Well, guess what, guys? The slip and slide method that I just taught you works on these as well, okay? So the hard part about 15, it could be 1 times 15, it could be 3 times 5, which has a lot of guessing and checking. So I'm going to solve these using the slip and slide method.